Imagine building a company that loses billions of dollars every single year. Yet investors keep giving you even more money. Imagine convincing some of the smartest investors in the world that renting office space could somehow become the next trillion-dollar technology company. And then, in just a few weeks, your company's value crashes from $47 billion to almost nothing. Thousands lose their jobs. Investors lose billions. One CEO walks away with hundreds of millions, and the company becomes one of the biggest startup disasters in history. So, how did WeWork convince the world it was changing the future, when it was really just renting offices? The answer isn't just about one company. It's about hype, greed, and what happens when people stop asking difficult questions. This is the unbelievable rise and fall of WeWork. In 2010, two entrepreneurs had a simple idea. Office space was expensive. Freelancers, small businesses, and startups couldn't always afford long-term leases. What if, instead of renting an entire office, people could rent just one desk or one small workspace? Shared offices weren't new, but WeWork wanted to make them feel different. Beautiful interiors, modern design, coffee bars, community events, networking. The company wasn't selling office space, it was selling a lifestyle. Young entrepreneurs loved it. Startups loved it. Investors loved it. The business expanded faster than almost anyone expected. Every new city seemed to want a WeWork. Every month, another location opened. Growth became the company's biggest selling point. But underneath all that excitement, a dangerous problem was already growing. At the center of everything was Adam Neumann. He wasn't a typical CEO. He was energetic, charismatic, confident. He didn't just talk about office buildings. He talked about changing the world. Investors loved listening to him. Employees believed him. The media celebrated him. Instead of calling WeWork a real estate company, he called it a technology company. That single idea changed everything. Technology companies receive much higher valuations than traditional real estate businesses, and investors were willing to believe the story. Money poured in. Billions of dollars. Expansion became faster, bigger, more ambitious. But there was one problem. The numbers weren't improving. The more WeWork grew, the more money it lost. Normally, businesses grow first, and profits come later. That's common in the startup world. But WeWork wasn't just losing money, it was burning cash at an incredible speed. Every new office required massive investments, long-term building leases, luxury renovations, expensive furniture, huge operating costs. The company signed contracts lasting years, while many customers could leave after only a few months. It was an incredibly risky business model. Yet, investors kept writing bigger checks. Why? Because everyone believed WeWork would eventually dominate the future of work. And as long as that dream stayed alive, almost nobody looked closely at the numbers. But dreams don't last forever. By 2018, WeWork wasn't just another startup. It had become one of the most valuable private companies in the world. Its valuation reached an unbelievable $47 billion. That number shocked the business world. How could a company that rented office space be worth more than many profitable global corporations? The answer wasn't profits, it was belief. Investors believed WeWork would transform how people worked forever. Every funding round pushed the valuation even higher. The bigger the number became, the harder it was for anyone to question it. Because nobody wanted to be the person who missed the next big thing. But behind the scenes, the business was still losing enormous amounts of money. Revenue was growing. Losses were growing even faster. The company wasn't becoming more efficient. It was simply becoming bigger. And bigger doesn't always mean better. Then came the moment that would expose everything. WeWork announced plans to go public. Unlike private fundraising, an IPO meant opening the company's financial records to the world. Investors finally saw the numbers. Billions of dollars in losses, huge long-term lease obligations, questions about corporate governance, and concerns about the CEO's influence over the company. Analysts began asking difficult questions, questions that should have been asked years earlier. Why was a real estate company being valued like a technology giant? Could the business ever become profitable? And why did the company's success seem so dependent on one charismatic founder? Almost overnight, confidence disappeared. The excitement turned into skepticism. The dream was starting to fall apart. As pressure mounted, attention shifted to Adam Neumann. Reports highlighted controversial business decisions. His leadership style came under intense scrutiny. Investors worried that the company had expanded too quickly without a sustainable plan. The planned IPO unraveled. The company's valuation collapsed. Within weeks, the figure that once reached $47 billion dropped dramatically. The board stepped in. Adam Neumann resigned as CEO. It was one of the most dramatic leadership changes in startup history. Yet despite the company's struggles, he left with a substantial financial exit. Meanwhile, employees faced layoffs, expansion plans were canceled, and confidence in the company continued to fade. The story of WeWork isn't really about office space. It's about what happens when storytelling becomes more powerful than reality. Vision matters. Innovation matters. But eventually, every business faces the same question. Do the numbers support the story? For years, WeWork convinced investors that growth alone was enough. But growth without a sustainable business model can become incredibly expensive. Today, WeWork remains one of the most talked about startup stories ever. Not because it changed the world the way it promised, but because it reminded the business world of something simple. A great idea can attract attention. A great story can attract investors. But only a strong business can survive. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. The most successful companies don't just inspire people. They build something that lasts. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Empire Decoded for more stories about the world's biggest companies, startup successes, billion-dollar failures, and the business decisions that changed history. Because behind every empire, there's a story waiting to be decoded.